Hello, and welcome to Culture Conversations, the podcast where we explore the people side of work. I'm your host, Megan Robinson. For years, I've found myself deep in discussions about workplace engagement with industry experts. Now I get to share this wisdom with all leaders, new and experienced, on their journeys to build cultures that maximize potential. We spend so much of our lives at work. Let's make it a place where our teams can grow and succeed. Hello, welcome to Culture Conversations. I'm your host, Megan Robinson, and we have a very unique and special episode today. I'm going to be talking with Ben Albert, and we were prepping for this, and trying to prep for this conversation. We had a really great topic all lined up, really specific for what Ben's passionate about and how to bring communities together and digital varieties. But when we jumped on, and said, you know what, I've got a conversation that I want to have. And I was like, look, this is called Culture Conversations. We are here for conversations. So this is unscripted. I actually don't even know what the topic, but you're going to get to have that live, real, raw thought process and thinking and creativity in that deep connection that we often have when we have really great people that we're putting together and we've sparked something. So I will introduce Ben. Ben is the owner of Albert Marketing. He's the founder of Grow Getters Only Collective, and he's also the host of the internationally recognized podcast of Real Business Connections. I will say he is fabulous at making connections, incredible podcast host, and I have been lucky enough to join him on his podcast. So Ben, go ahead, take it from there. What do you want to talk about today?
What's up, Megan Robinson? I'm pumped to be here. And I hope people do go listen to that episode that we did together. That was cool.
It was a good one. Also a unique one. Very, very thought-centric and weaving, we'll say.
Well, and I enjoy workshopping with you, Megan. And that's why I listened to a podcast last night. The speaker was Damon West. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I started to apply all my own ideas to this analogy provided. And I literally was losing sleep over it. And I'm like, I kind of want to bring this up. And because I love workshopping and collaborating with you, I want to kind of hear your opinion on it. And he was talking about being a coffee bean. And I'm going to take a step back for a moment. So imagine boiling water. And in this analogy, the boiling water is your environment. Your life circumstances, your experiences. You have boiling water. What happens when you put an egg into boiling water?
Yeah, hard-boiled eggs.
Yes.
Or if you're me, you get cracked hard-boiled eggs.
Me too sometimes. But the inside of the egg hardens. So imagine you're in an environment, maybe you're in the military, maybe you're in a very high stress workplace, maybe it's very much like a startup that you're working like double time, grit and grind. That can harden you. It can make you want to run faster. It can make you grittier. Sometimes it could make you actually push off other people's opinions and kind of be hardened in your way of thinking. Now there's another thing, a carrot. Now what happens when you put the carrot in the boiling water?
It's boiled carrots.
Yes, you get boiled carrots and the insides are soft. And some environments will soften you. Maybe it's a terrible thing that like a family member passed away, or maybe you're in a culture that's very collaborative and there's more empathy and conversation. You have a softer ear. You're a little less hard. You're a little less go get it. I'm a soft dude for the most part, but being soft doesn't always work properly in all scenarios. And a good friend of mine, Brian Bogart, always talks about having a soft front and a strong spine. You kind of want both. You want to be soft, you want to be empathetic, you want to listen, but you want to have a strong spine. You don't want to be pushed around. You want to be able to value yourself. So it's like neither are bad, but do you always want to be the egg? Do you always want to be the carrot? And in both scenarios, the environment itself is either softening or hardening you. Don't we want to show up as ourselves in all circumstances? And that's where the coffee bean comes into play. Because when the water boils the coffee bean, it doesn't really hurt the coffee bean. Rather, The coffee bean makes coffee. It affects the environment. So what I was losing sleep over is how do I become more of a coffee bean in my virtual community for the people? How can I create environments that doesn't necessarily soften or harden people, rather affects everyone around me? How can we become a coffee bean and make coffee where someone, let's say in my community, Grow Getters Only, they don't come out of it hardened or softened or either or per se, but they come out of it affected better. They've changed from it without changing their inside. And this is where I'm kind of flubbing up because I'm verbal processing this with you. Um, I'm learning how that I can better become the coffee bean and leave environments more affected by me in a positive way than allowing the environment to affect me in one way or another.
So if you're, we'll say the boiling water,
Yeah.
and you're the coffee bean inside of it, and you have, I'm going to even say enhance the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had water and now you've got coffee. For most of us, that's an upgrade. For
100%.
some few tea drinkers, right? Downgrade. Didn't want coffee, they'd rather have the boiling water. Some plain Janes in there just wish it was lemon.
Mm,
Um, so I think that's an important thing to know is that not everyone is going to like that environment that you've created. It's not necessarily, and being comfortable with those that don't resonate or aren't the coffee drinkers, that's okay too. They have different preferences. But if you have boiling coffee now and you put an egg in it, you're still going to get a hard boiled egg
coffee egg. I've never tried that before.
or coffee carrot.
So you're taking it a whole new level where you're taking another, because the thought process is how are you affected by your environment? Do you allow it to harden you, soften you, or do you find a way to make the environment better because of it? So in theory, you could be a tea bag and make it better if the environment calls for tea, not coffee. But I don't think you wouldn't toss an egg because you never were the egg. You never someone else could, oh man, you just put me through a tailspin.
Yeah, because what I'm hearing you ask is if how do I be a coffee bean?
Hmm.
Why do you want to be a coffee bean? So that you've created a better environment for other people,
Hmm.
which is wonderful. You've created coffee. Some people, and now it's kind of like two sides of it, right? Some people like coffee. Great, you've created something that they're attracted to and they want to continue to sip on you. On the flip side, you also haven't necessarily, like, from the other person's perspective, how much has the environment changed? Or is there something wrong? Do they want to be softened? Do they want to be
Mm.
hardened? Or do you want to find more coffee beans? So you're making a stronger coffee.
Ooh. Well, theoretically, uh, we've talked about lead by example very much in this world. Leading by example. You're leading by example by being a coffee bean. And I want people to step away from whether or not they like eggs, like coffee, like carrots. Just you're the kind of person that comes into the environment and creates a different color, a different tone. You change it in a positive way rather than letting it affect or hurt or change you. In theory, we want to lead by example to allow for more coffee beans because some people have been an egg their whole life. Things happen and it just makes them harder and more stubborn. And I love them, but it's frustrating to see people get harder and more stubborn over time. And it's frustrating when people get so softened that like stand up for yourself. And there are two different like dichotomies here. I want more coffee beans. And I guess theoretically, based on the environment and who you are, maybe you're not a coffee bean per se, but the concept of changing the environment for the better without losing yourself or allowing the environment to affect who you are as a leader, as a person, just as a human being at the core.
Well, and I think that's two different pieces. If we're focusing
Mm,
on just how you can be or how anyone could be more of a coffee bean, I think that's stepping into leadership. And that is stepping into leadership at any level. I think, my mission, my organization is really focused on how to make leadership more accessible and attainable for anyone, regardless of title, position, or experience. For your metaphor, everyone can be a coffee bean.
right.
Everyone is impacting the culture, and it's mostly at different levels how you're responding to the environment versus how you're driving the environment. And both of those have aspects that are coffee bean like, right? If you're seeing something and you don't say anything, if you see someone, I was in an email chain several months ago, and one of my colleagues ripped into another colleague
Mm,
very unfairly. And it was, I don't think intentional to be as harsh as it was, but it was a very direct and curt and abrasive tone that wouldn't leave anyone feeling good. So I like to practice what I preach, right? So I stepped in as another senior leader in that group and said, "Hey, not okay. This is what we're doing. Thank you for your help. Thank you for doing what you did." And not in a rude, put someone in their place kind of way, but acknowledge that that wasn't okay and that is not okay by me or anyone else. And letting people know where those guardrails are and where those boundaries are. I'll say coffee bean, right? I will say, I don't think I could have been the coffee bean in that situation had I not been an egg and a carrot in other situations.
mm,
Because I can think of many experiences that hardened me in some aspects that were
yeah.
both positive and negative, and others that softened me, mostly positive, right? We got hardened first and then we got softened.
Sure.
And then somewhere in that pendulum, you become coffee once you have
Yeah.
both of that flexibility. And I'll say, even if we put egg and carrot on opposite ends, loving that we're just beating this analogy forever.
Mhm.
I think that's now the title. Are you an egg? Are you coffee? Or are you a carrot? Um, Real leadership is having flexibility and meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
And so you have to have both skills in order to be able to balance and adjust that environment for the appropriate situation.
It's a learning
And
process.
I say that's more servant leadership in that aspect of meeting other people where they're at.
Mm,
On the flip side, I think you have more inspirational leadership, um, more visionary leadership that isn't on that spectrum. Because at that point, you're really affecting the water. You are changing it to coffee. You want it to be something very intentional and specific.
mm. I've never liked the concept of fake it until you make it. I kind of update that to be it until you become it. And I think you can show up and say, I'm a leader, I'm a builder, I'm going to help. But you can't just be a coffee bean without being hardened in some scenarios, without being softened in some. You can want to be a coffee bean. This is why I was like losing sleep over this. Like, in what scenarios am I becoming softened and what scenarios am I becoming hardened? How can I show up better in scenarios and do the best thing that I know? But I'm not always going to be this perfect, delightful, tasty espresso bean. And that's why I don't believe in faking it or pretending to be someone you're not. It's an iterative process that we learn as we go. And like when I was thinking about my community, and like I have a virtual community at Grow Getters Only, and I want to create environments where people feel like they can show up as themselves. And as they speak, they're not being judged, they're not being pushed away, they're not being criticized. They're the coffee bean when they speak, they're the coffee bean when they share. We can bring ourselves to the conversation and affect the environment rather than the environment telling us how we should act and how we should say. And I just want to continue to try to cultivate that kind of environment in my community, but just in my connections in general. So it's like, it's not like there's just one coffee bean. Theoretically, we all get to be the coffee bean if we all allow each other to show up and impact the environment in the best way that we can.
I think that's, to your point, how do you set the tone
Mm,
so that everyone does jump in as a coffee bean into that environment? And I think that's very much, how do you create a culture of learning or growth or experimentation and vulnerability? And I even throw agility. And for this is going to be a weird connection, but I'm working on a project on transformational leadership, or AI leadership in the age of AI, which
mm,
sounds like an AI generated title.
a little
Right.
bit.
And how do we lead with AI? And so much of that is, how do you create a culture or an environment where people can learn, where they can test, where they can play, where they can fail, where they can have some of those vulnerabilities of, I don't know what this means for me or my future. And you're going to work through it and work with it so that you are in that next phase, because it is growth. It's team growth, it's adaptation, it's innovation from an organizational perspective. I think for what you're really creating with that community is, how do you take that still vulnerability and that adaptation and um, that change from a personal, it's personal, professional, but even when we were chatting earlier, you have so many versions of where grow getters go,
Hmm.
that each one of those needs to have that same environment for innovation. And it's a self innovation, it's a space for reflection.
Mm.
And I will say that's the classic safe space that you create. So I think a lot of that is vulnerability.
Mm.
Right? Nothing happens without that little Brene Brown in there, right? That courage that you need to have to say something or think or put it out there or put yourself out there in that aspect.
It's different communities and different, like if I hire a consultant that's really good at one specific thing, I kind of want them to go in as the doctor, take the MRI on my business, and give me the answer as quickly as possible. In my community, like one of my favorite pieces of feedback was a member said, this is like business therapy. And I don't have a therapy license. I'm not trying to do therapy, but it means that she felt comfortable enough talking about things in her business that she wouldn't talk about elsewhere. And as a group, we were able to answer some of those questions, expand on some of the opportunities, and she's better for it. And again, the consultative MRI, this is the way to do it. Neither of those examples are wrong. I just personally like to be in those environments that I feel that connection with the people in the room, and it almost does feel like therapy. Like a conversation like this, you are kind of like my podcast business leadership therapist. I'm like, I lost sleep over this analogy. Let's talk about it and see where it takes us. And I'll be the first to admit, because I do have a podcast, I think I'm very much a verbal processor. It's that talking about an idea and that iteration process that lights me up. And I'm like, how can I? That's why community's great, because we can verbally process things together and figure stuff out together. I like to joke all the time that there's no key to success, it's a combination lock. And oftentimes, that combination lock are the people surrounding you, they're the people in your circle.
I'll never deny that. Who you surround yourself matters dramatically. We are not the first people to come to that conclusion.
Just find fun. I always find new ways to skin a cat. I don't
I
even
was
know
gonna
how
say,
to
wasn't
skin
it
a cat
Covey
the
that
first
said like
time.
you're the combination of the five people you hang around most?
Yeah,
Yeah. Which
100%.
yeah, 100% with that. I think when you go to that therapy analogy, it makes me giggle, which is kind of where I was thinking of being that coffee bean
Mm,
for you specifically, for the
mm,
type of environment that you want to create that coffee bean. Um, when I was first starting out and shifting from marketing to coaching, I used to joke that I called it business therapy because you go deep. When you are in
mm,
that coaching relationship or in that coaching space, you're giving people opportunities to be vulnerable, to talk. I still say, if someone's struggling to say something, like, say it to me the wrong way first.
mm.
We'll find the right way to say it, but this is the space where you can say it wrong. People have said some very wrong things that are not HR appropriate, but it's what they're thinking and it's what they're struggling with.
Yes.
And that's okay because those feelings are valid. That is part of it. We can figure out how to say it the right way or how to justify it or how to reposition it or reframe it or work through it so that it works. In that point, when you were looking for growth in any way, shape, or form, having that coaching like experience or that coaching like environment is where you're going to get the most out of it. So I will say if you pick up a coaching style of leadership rather than a dictator style or
Hmm.
a laissez-faire style or right there's or even a democratic style, there's lots of different styles of leadership. If you have more of a coaching approach to your leadership or that coaching style, you will always get the best out of your team. That's typically what they're looking for: the growth, the place to experiment, the resources, the vulnerability, the safety, the acceptance of failure,
Mm.
and continuing to grow with it. So I think it makes sense that if you're looking to create a coffee environment, that it has a very strong coaching approach to what that is, or a coaching environment.
And there's better ways to make coffee. You get the right beans, you get the right French press. It takes some coaching and strategy and collaboration to find the best way, but no matter what, you're going to have a better team if you're working together.
Absolutely. And like going through different types of beans
Yeah.
versus different types of pressure or brewing. And I
When
think that's
part
where
of it,
style.
it is style, and this is. I know we're talking about this like big picture analogy, but like the question I've been asking myself is how can I be a coffee bean? And that's kind of what I want the listener to be curious about. Like, what is my style? What is my flavor? Maybe I don't want to be a coffee bean and I want to be a mate. That is cool, but like, how can we show up and again not be hardened by the environment, not be bitter, not be softened or shameful or uh, how can we show up and positively affect our environments? But the key is like as ourselves. And that's why it's very ethereal because all of us are going to be different in our leadership style, in our communication style. And most of the time, there are harmful people that going to there's acts, in my opinion, that are deplorable. But 99.9% of people I meet are pretty darn cool. And I want them to bring themselves to the conversation.
I will say if you're trying to be more coffee, there's a self-awareness that needs to happen along the way. And I always look at two eyes. I'll say intention and impact. When you are clear on setting intention or the impact that you want to have on people, that is where you become coffee, right? You're not letting the environment affect you. You are bringing an intentionality to it to shape the water, to change the water.
I have a little iteration just because This is again call back to my friend Brian Bogert. He talks about AI awareness and intention, because if we have awareness and intentionality of the tool, the purpose, but we bring ourselves to it, we prompt it, we human edit it, it can do, it's our greatest assistant ever. It can do amazing things. But do we want AI to just be the boiling water? Or do we want to use AI to affect and create something beyond the boiling water? It would require awareness and intention to use AI as a coffee bean rather than just typing in a thing and then copy pasting it and posting it as a LinkedIn article.
I think that's where AI is the water, and we are still the coffee bean.
Hmm.
We're still changing it. So those were actually the two first words that I wrote down. I threw an impact at the end, but
Oh,
I
really?
think intention and awareness are those first two steps. And I will say a lot of great leadership, those steps into leadership is clear thinking.
Hmm.
If you don't have clarity yourself, you can't bring clarity for others. You're not acting in alignment. You're impulsive.
Mm.
And that
I
can
feel
definitely bring out the worst of us.
I feel judged.
Why?
I'm just kidding. Cause I'm a thinker and I'm a seeker and I can I'm probably clearer than I give myself credit for, but I have a lot of ideas, so I don't have the tunnel vision, this is the way kind of clarity. Part of my clarity is actually curiosity. It's like the more clear I get, the more unclear life becomes, if that makes any sense.
100%. Uh, and I think clarity goes in a lot of different directions.
Sure.
Nothing is ever 100% clear. It's never 100% clear. The pieces that you are clear about are the things that you will be and the things that you'll work towards and the things that you'll act towards. If you are bringing an intention and awareness and clarity about how you want to shape environments, you will do that. If you are just showing up in environments, you won't do that.
Hmm. This could be a tangent, but I'll keep it roped in. I had a sales background, and one thing that's big in sales is they give you a script. And part of why they give you a script is so you do understand the process of the best way to possibly ask questions or give a presentation, so on and so forth. But it's less about the words you say long term. Now, when learning a script, especially when you're younger, isn't the worst thing on earth. But as you become more advanced in anything in life, it's less about the script itself or the words you say. It's about the intention you bring to the interaction. Am I here to help them solve a problem? And if I can't, find a way to refer them to someone who can and ask, actually be curious. Now, there's sales trainers that teach curiosity tones and teach assertive tones. And it's like, if you have bad tonality, that doesn't hurt, but the best way to have a curious tone is to be curious about people. So it's
Add
again,
authenticity with it.
it's
Same thing
coming
with
to the
like
conversation not with the perfect clarity on how it's going to go, but clarity on how you want to treat the interaction.
for me, that comes to, and this is where my key takeaway with that will be.
Hmm.
If you want to be the coffee bean, it's about stepping into leadership. And to step into leadership takes that intention and that awareness of the self and the intention of the impact that you want to have. But it's beyond checking boxes because I call that checkbox leadership.
Yeah.
Well, I asked everyone how they were doing because I wanted to create a vulnerable community.
Yeah.
Did you actually care or listen to how they were doing? Did you let that shape how the conversation went?
Mm,
If you did it to check a box, then you're not being authentic with it.
dang. It's like I asked them how they were doing, box checked. They replied, box checked. Okay. And
I
now,
used
so
a
what?
curious
Now what?
tone.
Yeah.
I used a curious tone, box checked.
Yeah.
Was I actually curious?
When the hardened mentors in my life would say, so what? Now what? So you checked a couple boxes. What now? You gonna do something? That's where the heart comes into place. A little bit of self-motivation there.
And I think that's part of that is desire. You
Hmm.
have to have that true, and you can say authenticity, you can say desire. Um, there's probably some other good words for it. But if you don't have a desire to be curious, if you don't have a desire to create a community, if you don't have a desire to connect with your team or to connect with others, whatever actions you take will be flat. It's the so what, now what? If you can answer that on why did you do that? What was the point of that? And it has to be more of something that you personally connect with and align with. Great. If you did it because your boss told you to, not so great.
That's so great.
Or because some great trainer or some community told you to do it,
Yeah.
or it was a best practice. No drive behind it. This has been a fabulous conversation, Ben.
Do you think
Um,
this is helpful? Do you think the listeners has takeaways or they're gonna lose sleep?
what was your takeaway?
Um,
Are you going to lose sleep?
my main, this isn't super hyper specific, but I came in with an analogy that I was interested in. And he wrote a book about it. There's books. I'm sure it goes really deep on, there's a quote unquote right way to see this analogy. But since it was new to me and brand new to you, I guarantee our conversation around it is nothing like the quote unquote right way to see it. So it took me on an exploratory journey because I came in understanding it, and you are immediately, I don't know if I was questioning my certainty, but you were breaking my certainty of understanding by expanding it, being like, what if you put the egg in the coffee? And I'm like, oh, hadn't thought about that yet. But the conversations that break my certainty is where I learn the most. That's my takeaway. Have conversations that break your certainty.
I love that. And I will say, if anyone listening wants to have more of those conversations, you've got a great coffee bean right here. Coffee bean in training, coffee bean in progress. We're still roasting a little bit, getting nice and toasty. But I do recommend that you check out the Grow Getters Only collective. It's weallgrowtogether.com.
Yeah, weallgrowtogether.com. The purpose is in the domain.
People are like, why would I join? So that we can grow together, so that
All
you
of
can
us.
have all of us, not one person, not just me, not just you. Everyone gets to grow
I
together.
never thought about this, but it literally like hammers in the coffee bean analogy. The more coffee beans growing together, quote unquote, the more coffee beans, the better the coffee. The more
Yeah.
seeds, the bigger the farm.
And I will say the bigger the farm, and there is a surplus of water available. So
Mm,
it's never going to get oversteeped.
it's one thing we have a lot of.
That's who you talk to. Uh,
Fair.
yeah, I'm not going to go. I was going to go with the land. I was like, no, stick with the water. I do truly recommend it. And if you are on that journey, if you are having those types of questions, please go ahead, visit Ben, visit weallgrowtogether.com. And Ben, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And listen to you on my podcast, Real Business Connections. That was cool.
Uh, yeah, we definitely, again, very brainstorm, collaborative conversation on what it means to make connections,
Mm.
and and how those connections are valuable and important or detracting, I will say. This has been a fabulous conversation, very focused on culture. I hope this inspires everyone that is listening to go out and have some of those real business connections, have those conversations, and really be intentional and self aware about what you're bringing to that culture and community. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Culture Conversations. I'm your host, Megan Robinson, founder of eLeader Experience, a professional leadership development company. Today, we shared actionable ideas to navigate the evolving workplace landscape, compete for talent, and build cultures that maximize potential. If you're looking to learn more about how to support your organization's leaders, you can learn more about our work at eleaderexperience.com. Now get out there and contribute positively to your organization's culture with your own conversations.